Okay. So there's some more fun things we can do with this before we're done. The main fun thing we can do is to kind of give the ship a random initial velocity. And so this is some code that you copy to the clipboard. But you can feel free to change these values. So I have the random velocity going from plus or minus 20 in the x direction to plus or minus 20 in the y direction. So I can paste that into there, like so. And so now when you run the program, instead of just sort of like falling down to the ground uniformly, it will, starting from rest, it will give you some initial velocity. And so sometimes the initial velocity will be down, which makes it really challenging to actually maneuver the ship. But if you're training to land on the moon, you better be ready for, anything. And so in this case, the initial velocity was up this way, and I have to kind of control it to come back down that way. Okay. Slowly, slowly, like that. Okay, that worked out. Do it again, same direction, but often it's in another direction, or it might be to the right, up, or down. So that one it was to the bottom left. So it just makes the game a lot more fun. If you want to, if you want to change these numbers, you're welcome to. So for example, if you change this from 20 to 100, things might get a little crazy. So there we go, off to the side like that. So you can feel free to mess around with that as you like. There's a couple more challenges that I won't necessarily go through in detail. But one thing that you might want to think about is, what if you change the gravity to 9.8, and you can also change around the values for the thrust, and by that I mean that you can go back to these if statements where it says, fx, fy equals 15. Well, if you change gravity to 9.8, you might need extra thrust to slow yourself down. So if you were to change the gravity, that would be something you might want to tinker with. But you'll find that it's much harder to land the ship safely if the gravity is 9.8 instead of negative 1.67. But this is what SpaceX has to do. So you see all those beautiful videos of the SpaceX rockets sort of like slowly coming back down. And so they have computers that do this. And so one of the things that you could do is, not only could you try to configure the code to try to land, to try to let the user try to land safely, you could actually try to make the code smart, or put in some sort of, I don't want to say artificial intelligence, but put in some kind of scheme that would automatically try to make sure that the ship is landing safely. There's a couple different ways to do that. So one way you might try to like zero out the velocity and then sort of slow, like have a two-phase thing, or but it's up to you how you do it. But in any case, the SpaceX rockets, there's no human that's landing that thing. There's a computer on board that is designed to do all the complicated trajectories to make sure this thing lands as safely as it can. And sometimes it succeeds. Most of the time it succeeds, but it took them some tinkering before it actually worked. So that's one of the challenges you could try to do. Another challenge would be to, maybe that's one of the tougher ones, I guess. Another challenge would be to try to keep track of your fuel. So what you might want to do is to have some sort of like fuel gauge. So you might want to add like a variable up at the beginning of the program, fuel equals 500 or something like that. And every time you press a button, you subtract from that amount of fuel. And if you run out of fuel, then your buttons won't work. Then you won't be able to fire any rockets anymore, and you're likely to just sort of crash on the ground. So that's a fun one you can try to do. I've seen one or two people do it. And I think I believe the original video game had fuel in it. So if you ran out of fuel, keeping track of the fuel is something you want to do. And as I said earlier, the Apollo 11 astronauts, almost ran out of fuel themselves. And so this is actually not a theoretical issue in any way. The third challenge, maybe this is the easiest one. The third challenge is to go ahead and put thrusters if you're firing up. So you have sort of like an interesting looking orange triangle. But you can change the color if you want to some other value. I think I have it on, maybe I have it on pure red. Yeah, pure red there. But you can change the color, that sort of thing. Yeah, SpaceX Autopilot, I already talked about that one. You can also do autopilot landing on the moon. So that about sums it up, the Apollo moon landing code. So I hope you have a lot of fun with it. And it's very important to do this whole calculation with the square root thing, by the way. Because again, we cannot just assume that this code is right. Just because I'm a smart guy doesn't mean that the code is right. It's only smart if it shows itself to accurately do this. So I hope you had fun with this activity, and yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Thanks.